Hey guys, it's Kaz here, and today I am finally doing my September wrap up. So in September I participated in, well, a couple of readathons, but in this wrap up I'm going to mostly focus on the Scoobyathon because there were the most prompts for that. So that was a month-long readathon. There was 19 prompts. Nowhere in my mind did I say I'm going to complete them all, but then it got to a certain point in the month and I thought, okay, well, I could complete them all, and then I completed them all. So yes, this readathon was all about reading books and watching films, so I'm just going to go through everything. There was quite a lot in here, so I'm going to try and be concise and not just chat shit for ages. So let's just jump straight in now. The first prompt was to read a mystery, so for that one I read Chew Volume 2. This is called She Drunk History. This is a spin-off series from Chew about Tony's sister, and it was a fun one. The artwork is different to the original Chew, but it's still really fun and really colourful. Here's an example. And yeah, it was a great time. I really enjoyed it. It was fun, it was wacky, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. The next prompt was set in or released in 1969 or 70, and for that one I read Mindhunter by John Douglas and Mark Alshaker. This one was very it was one of the few that I sort of twisted into the prompt, because this is non-fiction and it's about the FBI, behavioural analysis, how it all came to be, the whole serial killers thing, going and interviewing serial killers and coming up with how people can profile people that do crimes. So yeah, that's pretty much the basis of this. It was really good, I really enjoyed it, but like I flicked through a few of the pages and then I saw 1970 in there and I thought, bang, it's set in there, even if it's just this one paragraph. So it's set throughout a lot of time, but it hit the prompt-ish, kind of. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I was a little bit apprehensive in case it was a bit dry, a bit too academic, but it was actually a really good, fun, interesting read. The way it was written was really interesting and engaging, and it was a good time. The TV show is also a good time, so I recommend both. The next prompt was set in England, and I randomly watched this film called The Bubble. It was set in England, so boom, it fit. This film, it was fine, it was alright. It was weird because it's I think it's kind of meant to be a comedy, but it also wasn't the most funny, but there were certain bits of it that were funny. Basically, it's about a film that was filmed during COVID, and we're following the actors of said film and them being put in a bubble, hence the title, and then everything coming from that. It was alright, it wasn't the best. I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5 stars maybe, at a push. I watched it, it existed, so yeah. The next prompt was set at sea, and for this one I watched The Endurance, Shackleton's Legendary Antarctic Expedition. This was a documentary. I found it on YouTube, it was there for free, so obviously I watched it. And yeah, it was all about Shackleton and the Endurance expedition and how it went. It got trapped in ice, the boat sunk, the people had to go on this crazy epic saga adventure to not die, and then they didn't die, so it was a good time. I very much enjoyed it. The next prompt was set on an island, and I watched The Stranger by the Beach. I didn't watch these and read these in order, so I didn't just sit and watch loads of films. This happened throughout the month, but yeah. The Stranger by the Beach, yes, that's what it's called. This was a animated film, honestly. So I want to do Mel from A Book Fiend Named Mel's tag that she made about Heartstopper, and in that tag you talk about books or TV shows or films, and I'm very much decided that I'm going to talk about every single one, but one of the prompts is an animated film or book or graphic novel, whatever, and I'd never seen an animated film that was also LGBT, so I specifically searched for one and watched it just so I could mention it in that video. So yeah, that's coming up. Yeah, this was just pretty much a slow burn romance between these two characters who met when they were younger, and then one of them goes away to be fostered, I think, because his parents died, and then they meet several years later, and just a slow burn romance. So yeah, I watched that. The next prompt was featuring ghosts. So first of all, I reread The Sad Ghost Club 1, and then I read The Sad Ghost Club 2 by Liz Meddings. This is a graphic novel series, and it's about these ghosts that are social anxiety, not really enjoying being around people. in the first one, a main character is at a party and they're sort of sitting in the back and everyone's doing all the pie business and they're just like, not really for me. And then it's about depression, it's about not knowing what you want to do when you're older, it's about not knowing how to live, but also it's fine to live how you're living. Sometimes it's an effort just to get out of bed and that's fine, it happens. In the second one we meet more characters as well that are all dealing with certain stuff, and it's just a really lovely series. It's all in black and white. Let me show you some of the artwork. So yeah, this is what it looks like in here. And it's just a really cute, sweet, easy, quick read, and yes, good times. The next prompt was featuring a dog, and this one was another that is a bit of a push into that. Not really, I mean it features 2 dogs technically. So I watched Shelter for that. This is one of my favourite films. It's amazing, I love it, yes. And twice they're on a beach and there's a dog on the beach with them. So it features not only 1 dog, it features 2 dogs. They're just not very prominent in the story, but they are featured, so therefore it fits the prompt. And yeah, this is also a gay love story. It's really cute and really wholesome. The main character sister has a son and she's like pretty much a shit mom, so he's taking care of the son, and it's like this found family, really cute, lovely. There's surfing, there's music, there's art. It's a good time. It's a wholesome time. You should watch it. It's also on YouTube for free if you just search Shelter 2007, because there's another film that came out a few years later called Shelter, which is a horror, I think. I don't know, I've not seen it. But literally just search Shelter 2007 and you will find it for free on YouTube to watch. And you should, because it's really cute and lovely and I love it. And it's great. Moving on. So the next prompt was featuring an older character, and for that one I read All About a Part of Me by Molly Ringwald. At one point in this, the character goes to their grandparents' birthday or something, one of their grandparents' birthday, and then there's old people there, so therefore it counts. Yeah, this is about this guy who is an artist. That is not the right word I was looking for. An actor, and he moves to England, is acting in this film, and also at the same time he's like figuring out his bisexuality because he's having all these flirty conversations with his gay best friend back in America. There's also this woman who is the director in the film he's in, who he's like having feelings for. All that jazz. I enjoyed the initial start of it, but then there were a few tropes in here that I don't really like. One specifically that I don't think I've ever read. I've seen it in films and TV and stuff, and I just was like, as soon as I read it I was like, well, this is a trope I don't like. I won't tell you, if you want ask me in the comments or whatever, but yeah. And I just thought, really? And then there was another sort of tropey thing that happened at the end. You know when they're like try and force drama for drama's sake and you know that's why it's happened? It's one of them, and I was like, meh. So I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was fine, it was alright, but there was a few tropes in there that just made me just like, ugh, eye roll sort of thing. So yeah, it was fine. I read it. The next prompt was a horror, so that one I watched Scream 5. Very much enjoyed this. Scream for me is like one of the most iconic films, not just the films but like the series, Scream series in general. And yeah, I enjoyed number 5. I thought it was really good. It had the same sort of screamy meta sort of talking about the film in the film, and not really in a fourth wall break but in a, like a meta way. It's really cool and I enjoyed it. There were some really cool gory scenes that made me go like, oh, out loud when I was watching it. It was really good. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this film. It was a good time. Moving on, because we've got a lot to talk about. Also, I think we're about halfway through the prompts, so let's just head on over to a message from one of the spawns and then I shall be back with the rest of them. Yes. Captain. The next prompt was featuring robots, and for that I read AI Insurrection. This was really short, it was like 14 pages I think, but it was really interesting because the prompt was put into an AI, like actual thing, computer thing, and then they came up with a story about how AI machines get bored of doing what they're doing, but then it's like, how can they get bored because they're machines and they don't have the concept of boredom? But then it's like, but if all of the information on the internet was put into them, they have boredom, like on Twitter when people put out tweets about how they're feeling, all of that sort of thing is going to be put into the AI, and then they'll have the feelings without actually having the feelings, so then they'll know how to be bored. And it was just a really cool concept. So then this AI machine came up with a story, like a 10-sentence story I think it was, and then the writer merged that story into this comic, or this graphic novel. It's like really short graphic novel, and then even the images in the graphic novel were created by AI by inputting like what they wanted to be shown in the images. It's a really cool concept, and yeah, I just really thought it was really cool. I read this on Kindle Unlimited. It was random. I specifically just looked for someone that had robots in, not gonna lie. That happened a few times when trying to do these prompts, you know. But yeah, I'm glad I did, because I think it was really cool and different and unique sort of thing. So yeah. The next prompt was featuring music, and for that one I read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This is about a girl who wants to be a rapper and just everything else whilst wanting to do that. Her life, her family, her living situation, the gangs that are around her and certain things that have happened. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I finally, these past 2 months in September and then August, actually read the other Angie Thomas books that I have on my TBR. I read The Hate You Give ages ago, and then finally last month I read Concrete Rose, and this month I've read On the Come Up, and I've enjoyed all of them. I think she's a really good writer and it's really interesting. Although, one of the things I did think when I was reading this book, she's a bit of a nerd, and everyone she talks to, all these like cool hip-hoppy people, always thought she was a nerd, didn't know her references, or were like saying really stupid stuff. Like she'll say something about Gollum or something and then they'll mention Harry Potter, you know, like mixing it up. And I was like, I don't know what America is like, but in England, grime music is like our version of hip-hop, kind of, you know. Like even the baddest grime people in the country are flipping nerds. Like Giggs, he's worn a full Piccolo outfit from Dragon Ball Z. Listen to any grime song and there'll probably be like a random little line in there about an anime or a random geeky TV show or about superheroes. Like, they are geeks and they don't care to show that they're geeks because they're proud of it. And it's just really cool. Like Jeremy, he'll just randomly talk about geeky stuff. It's just, you're allowed to be a geek. You don't have to pretend you're cool and hip hop and in a gang. You can be cool and hip hop and in a gang and also be a geek. So yeah, that was one thing that I thought about when I was reading this. But other than that, yeah, it was cool. I really enjoyed it. Good times. Let's move on because we've got loads to talk about. The next prompt was set in a circus, and for that one I read Vicious Circus. I read issues 0 to 6. So like 1 to 6 was a thing, and then issue 0 was a prequel. And this is all just about creepy clowns going and murdering people that have done bad stuff. So for example, there was a kid and his dad was being abusive to him, and then these clowns go and like kill the shit out of the dad, and they take the kid to their clowny thing and like turn them into one of the clowns. It's creepy, it's weird, it's very gory, and again I randomly found it on Kindle Unlimited. But yeah, it was a time. There was some cool twists in it. Like the first 3 or 4 issues was one story, and then the other 2 was like a continuation but set later on. And there were some cool twists about characters that you saw in the first one and this one, and different stuff that was happening. And yeah, if you like weird creepy clowns that will murder people that have done bad stuff, then maybe you'd enjoy this. There you go. The next prompt was featuring a werewolf, vampire, or Frankenstein's monster, and for this one I read Mooncakes. It could have also fit in with the witch prompt, which is a bit later, but I read something different for that. So yeah, in this comic it's about a witch and also about a werewolf, and it's also sapphic and there's stuff going on. The witch girl has like a, is it a bookshop or is it just a shop with magical stuff in that she lives in with some of her family? And then the werewolf person, who is non-binary, comes, who is the girl's friend, and then stuff's happening, like this magical stuff's happening in the forest, all that jazz. It was a good time, but it's very cutesy. It's not very heavy on like the baddie stuff. There is baddie in there. It's one of those like baddies that are just bad for badness sake. But yeah, it was mostly quite cutesy and quite fluffy, but it was a good time. So yeah, there you go. The next prompt was set in the past, so I watched Firebird for this one, and this is a film set in, it's in Soviet times, and it's between these two, well, one of them's like a higher rank and then one of them's just like the soldier dude, and then it's a gay romance in there, but it's based on real life. It's based on this real guy that wrote a book that you can't get hold of because I googled it. I think it was done limited on, like, it was released once many years ago, but now the film's out, they're probably gonna like re-release it and stuff. But yeah, it's based on him talking about this stuff that happened between him, this fighter pilot guy, and then him, and then having this secret romance, because obviously it was very frowned upon in those times to be gay, so there was a lot of sneaking around. And it's told over a period of like maybe 5 to 10 years, I think. So it has them in this army camp interacting, and then later on, several years later, stuff's happening. And yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'd heard a few people mention it being a good film, so I seeked it out and I watched it, and it was a good time. So yeah. The next prompt was featuring witches or zombies, and this one is very strenuous. And also, again, I read something that I'm going to talk about after this that had more witches than this one, but because I'd already written it in, I just counted it. So yeah, I watched Do Revenge, which is a film that definitely didn't have any real witches in, but when they were talking about, you know how in high school films they always go around and be like, oh, there's the jocks, there's the cheerleaders, there's the whatever. In here, there's the Instagram witches or the TikTok witches or whatever, and it's a group of girls, and then one of them's kind of like a side character. She's in it a little bit more. So I thought, hey, Instagram or TikTok witches count as witches, right? Bang. A thing with witches in it. Even though Mooncakes had more witches in it, and so did the next one, which has the word witch in the title. But yeah, I'd already written it in, so Do Revenge. This is a high school thing, and it's this girl that a video of her is leaked, and then everybody's obviously being a bastard about it. So she wants her revenge on all of the people that used to be her friends, all the popular kids, and then a new girl turns up at school and she wants revenge, so they want to do some revenge, hence the title. And yeah, it was a fun time. It was very silly and fun and good time. It's also sapphic because one of the main characters is a lesbian. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was one of them films that's just fun to watch. So the next prompt was featuring pirates, and for that one I read The Witch and the Pirate. Got a title in it, said witch. But yeah, this was quite a short one. I think it's about 100 pages. Again, some random thing I found on Kindle Unlimited looking for something with the word pirate in it. So yeah, this one is about this princess girl who's also a witch, so she has magical powers, and then this pirate girl, also sapphic again, they're together, and it's just about stuff like the kingdoms happening. There's the princess, who is actually the queen, but they call her princess. Her uncle is the main guy of like another island, and then there's like this battle thing that's going to go on. It's also like the 5th book in a series, but it didn't feel like I needed to know the stuff, but also it didn't really wrap up stuff, so there's probably stuff that's going to go on that I'm not going to figure out what's going to happen, which is why it was like a 3 stars for me. It was fine, it was enjoyable, but I didn't get the whole story because it was so short. It's like 100 pages, and because within those pages it was weird because some of the things felt like they were drawn out, and then other things like the baddie sort of thing just felt like it got wrapped up really quickly. Not wrapped up, but like, fuck it, I'm gonna spoil it, but not really. This bad thing's happening, her uncle's doing this bad thing, she's gonna sneak over there and try and figure out, and then like as soon as she sees him, the first thing he says like, oh yeah, I'm doing this bad thing. Like there was no sort of trying to worm his way in it, and it just felt like, oh, we know now, it's happened. So yeah, just that sort of thing, there was no tension. But yeah, it was fine, it was alright, I read it. Let's move on. The next prompt was set in space, and for that one I watched Thor: Love and Thunder. This was a fun time, it was wacky, it was silly, it was entertaining. I still think Ragnarok is my favourite Marvel film in general. But I know this film, a lot of people are like hating on it because it's not as good as Ragnarok, which, you know, was it ever going to be? Because Ragnarok's great. I just thought it was a fun time, it was silly, it was very over the top, it was very colourful, like the VFX in it were very animated rather than real lifey, and I don't even care about that. I'm fine with that. It was just a fun, silly romp. There were fun times, there were screaming goats. I enjoyed it. What can you say? Marvel in general are all about popcorn flicks, so I'm not expecting some like masterpiece. It was a fun time. I enjoyed it. Yeah. And also, some of the things that happened I wasn't expecting to happen, so I thought the ending would go a different way and it didn't. And how often can you say that about a Marvel film? Because normally you know exactly how it's going. But in this one, it was like a little switcheroo. And then the title of it is something completely different than what you'd expect it to be. So really, it did being a film well. So yeah. The next prompt was set in a castle, and for that one I read Bram Stoker's Dracula in black and white. This was a graphic novel. I've never read Dracula and I've never seen a Dracula film, I don't think. Obviously I know the whole mythos of Dracula and I've seen like a bajillion things that I've taken from Dracula, but I've never actually read the source material. And I don't know if this was necessarily the best way to do it because it was in a graphic novel form. The pacing probably wasn't the best. It was alright. Again, it's one of them ones that I read it, it was alright, I didn't hate it, but I didn't necessarily love it. Like I say, the pacing issues, also the artwork in here, it was kind of hard to distinguish characters. People just had faces and they all looked the same. So yeah, it was alright. I've now kind of almost a little bit read Dracula, so I kind of know the story properly. But yeah, it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. But also, who the hell was any of the characters, because they all look the same. So yeah, let's move on. The last prompt. The last prompt was a snowy atmosphere, and for this one I read this graphic novel called Tooth. This one was also really short, but it was just really cute and lovely. It's about this guy and then he finds a little baby dragon outside that's like fallen from his nest, and then yeah, he don't know whether to look after the dragon, he'd take it back to the other dragons, slay the dragons, and then yeah, it's like 40 pages maybe, something like that, maybe less, can't remember. But it's really short, but it was really nice, and the artwork was really nice, and yeah, it was just a fun time. There was very little dialogue because obviously it was a dude with a dragon, so like who's he going to talk to? He's just on his own. So yeah, it was good. I liked it. Another random one I got from Kindle Unlimited. And then I also read a bunch of other things that probably could have fit into the prompts, but I'd already fit other things in, so let's go through those as well. So I read Chef's Kiss, also on Kindle Unlimited. As you can see, I had 3 months free and I was trying to get as much out of it as I could before it was gone, because I'm not paying for Kindle Unlimited because I own a bajillion books. But I will read a load of things on there. Chef's Kiss, this was a graphic novel about this guy who would be at uni and he was like all doing English stuff and trying to get an English copy editor type job. No one wants to employ him because all the jobs are stupid. They're like, have you got any experience? No, come back to us when you got experience. I can't get experience until you give me a job. That's how real life is. And then in the end he ends up going to this restaurant and it's got this really eccentric boss, so he has to do all these different challenges to be able to get into the restaurant and work there properly. And it was a fun time. It was also male romance, very slow burn, but yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was silly. Like I say, the boss was very eccentric. But yes, I enjoyed it. Next up, I also read The Dark Earth Volume 1. It was a manga. I read this because the Buzzwordathon prompt for September was dark and light. And I do have a few books that have sort of darkness or light in them, but they're all full books. And as you can see, I read a fuck ton of things, so I wanted something small. So I went with this random manga. It's the start of a series, so you don't really get much about what's going on, but it's about this family. They're moving to this weird town because they've run out of money. I think the dad abandoned them and then they've got no money, so they're going to live with the mum's dad, who is horrible, and he's in the clan, but it's not that clan, it's a clan who are against these fairy folk, I think. Like, they all hate on these fairy folk that also live in this village, and then it turns out that the son was adopted and he's a fairy thing, so like the dad hates this kid, and that's pretty much where we are in the random first volume. It's also male romance, so like the fairy guy and this teenage guy are gonna get together. It was fine. Don't know if I'm gonna carry on. It's not something that I would spend money on if I found it for free maybe, but it was alright. I know some people really enjoy fairies, so there you go, that exists. I also read, what did I also read? Genderqueer is another thing that I read on Kindle Unlimited. This is a non-fiction graphic novel about the main character and just them coming to terms with gender. And it's about family, it's about growing up, and it's about just existing and who you are as a person. And yeah, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the artwork, I enjoyed the whole message. I do think it ended really abruptly, really weird. It was just like, and now it's the end. It didn't feel like an ending, but then I guess it's about someone's real life, so it doesn't just end, it's still existing, so makes sense in a way. But also it felt very, very abrupt. Just like, and now it's the end. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Let's talk about Love by Claire Can. This one is about Alice, who is biromantic, asexual. At the beginning of the story, her girlfriend splits up with her because she's like, no, you don't like sex. And then it's all about this infatuation with this guy. She works at a library. This guy starts working at the library, and then she's like questioning herself, like, do I like him? Am I physically attracted to him? Am I sexually attracted to him? Is everything I know a lie? Am I not asexual anymore? What does this mean? It's all like that sort of thinking. And then also, like, she's dealing with other stuff. The course she's doing at university, her family, or college, it's American probably, college, her family want her to be a lawyer. She doesn't want to be a lawyer. So it's like that sort of thing as well. This one, I do think I enjoyed it. It was one of the middling books that I read this month. Specifically because I think a lot of the dynamics between her and this guy that she likes, we see the turmoil of her thinking about stuff. We don't actually see the interactions to make us care about the two of them as a couple of friends or romantics or whatever. And like there's certain parts in the books where she's talking, like he likes photography, so she's going through these pictures and she's like, oh yeah, this is the time we went and did this thing, and this is the time we did that, and there's a time. I'm like, why didn't you show us any of them times in the book so we care more about this dynamic, instead of just you two sitting in the apartment talking? Why didn't we get some of these cute like friend dates that you went on, instead of just looking at the pictures and saying, oh yeah, we went to that place? And I'm like, did you? Because where's the proof? In the words. And also the friend dynamic, she has these two friends, and I thought it was like, you know those books that show you like, oh yeah, this friend group, they've been friends for like 20 years, but then something happens in the book and then there's like a break between them, but you need to actually have some of the friendship in the beginning to care about them. We didn't get enough about her and these friends for me to not think that her friends were just dickheads, if you know what I mean. You know, like when they do the breakup of friendship, or the misunderstanding, or the argument too early in the book, and you're like, okay, but I don't actually care about their friendship because you didn't show me enough that they actually care about each other. Yes, you told me they've been friends for 15 years, but you haven't shown me anything about them interacting with each other that isn't like a little bit toxic and a little bit horrible. Like, you have to give me that first so I care about the friendship, instead of just thinking, well, she's a dickhead. You know what I mean? It did that. Well, yeah, it was alright. Again, a middling book, probably like 3 stars. Can't remember how much I rated it. I think it was probably about there. And then last but not least, yes, I'm finally going to shut up in a minute, I read Still the Worm by Agent Tchaikovsky. This is the 10th and final book in the Shadows of the App series, so obviously I can't really talk much about it because it's 10 books in and it's the end and everything's wrapped up. But I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I finally finished the series. Everything was kicking off. This book, like this new big thing was kicking off, and I really enjoyed it. I liked the way it was done at the end. There was like an epilogue where it goes through telling you different sort of characters and what they were doing now. And I just really enjoyed the way it was written. And yeah, it was good. Everything was kicking off. Everything unkicked off. This series is one of them really good series in that it's a fantasy, it's about war and politics, and characters actually die. I really, really hate reading a book that's like about a war and then nobody dies, because I'm like, is that realistic? In here, within these 10 books, like 2 books in, you've got your favourite character, then the 3rd book, like everyone dies. Not literally, but also kind of. So it's really cool the way that it's done, because you meet other characters and it doesn't feel like they're just thrown in here like, oh, we've killed off the character so we need new characters. Like, everybody feels like a real character, and you see from all the sides. Like I said, it's mainly about war between these different kingdoms, and you see characters on the baddies side and you understand why they're doing what they're doing and who they are as people, and you like the bad guys. You're like, oh, that's the general of the baddies, but I like him for some reason. And I think that is a testament to a really well written series, that you actually like characters from all the different places, and even though these characters are fighting these characters and these characters are all your favourites, you actually just really like these as well. Like, bad stuff happens, it's good. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, finally finished the series. It was a good time, and I was short because I've been talking for ages. So yes, that was my September wrap up, including several films that I watched, just to show you the Scoobyathon stuff that I did. Let me know down below what you read in September. if you've read any of these, if any sound interesting. I didn't really go into very many of them much because there's a lot, but don't worry, I don't have Kindle Unlimited anymore, so it's not going to be this crazy from now on. But yeah, let me know down below anything you want to in the comments. Also, I did this the other time, I think one person did it, but share some emojis for one book and I'll try and guess which book you're talking about in emojis. Do that if you want. If you're still here, you're probably not, so I'll shut up. And yeah, if you want to, subscribe. If you don't, all that jazz. And I shall see you in a few days with another video. Bye.